There was this question that was submitted. What age can a girl or a boy be in a relationship? Well, kind of that, all right? What age? It's about age. Age. Now, this is an age-old question, right? It's always the same question. What age, Daddy and Mommy, can I be in a dating relationship? What age? Is this the age? And I still get this once in a while. At this age, can I start thinking about boys? Can I start thinking about girls? It always goes back to this idea of age. Age. Now, is that the way to think? Is it all about age? Is age the only guideline? It seems to be in everybody's mind. Now to look at some Old Testament situation and then ask ourselves a question. Well, for them, what age did they end up in a relationship or even get married? Parents will get worried. Now, according to the rabbinic text, I took this from, and it's quite consistent across most studies and biblical data, historical data. Parents encourage to engage their girls around age of 12, get into engagement, 12. Of course, their engagement, their betrothing is different from us today, about the time of puberty, and marry them a year later. Now, this is quite surprising, very young age, right? And many of the archaeological evidences seems to support this claim. First century inscriptions list women's age at marriage, generally about between 12 to 17. So, the people who ask me about when, what age, they're actually above 17. So they may say, too late. Majority at 13. So parents, don't worry, all right? There's an explanation. Now, if so, should teens start having relationship at about 12 years old, 13 years old? Well, Wei Chen is, okay. Why, Wei Chen? Why? You disagree with what they used to do? Now, let's look at some information. The young during the New Testament time, for example, Joseph and Mary, obedience depended on God for direction, although they were very young. And surprisingly, most data really supports that she was on the lower range, right? Not 17, lower range of teens, Mary. Now, when Mary, at a very young age, simply received information from God that the child is God's, is God in her, right? Now Luke 1:38, and Mary said, "Behold, thy handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word." To her, her prefrontal cortex, right, we studied that, was simply what she follows. The word of God says this, and that's it. That is the kind of young people they were. Now do not forget also Joseph. And then Joseph, her husband, being a just man and not willing to make her a public example, was minded to put her away privily. Think of the maturity of this young man, how he handled the situation, not raging with anger and fury and so on. He was very thoughtful, careful, considerate. He did not know the entire situation, but see how he handled it. Very different from today. Do not also forget, even for Daniel and friends, right? Most archaeological evidences also showed they were teenagers, also around 13 to 17 years old at most. From the biblical information as well, they were teenagers. Think of these teenagers, the way they responded to the Babylonian rulers, their courage, their faith, their trust in God, their knowledge of God's word, their courage. If God does not deliver us from this furnace, if God does not deliver us from this death, then let it be known to you, O King. The courage and the courtesy in which they spoke. Let it be known to you, O King. We will not change. They were teens. So please don't think that these people were teens like you today, like the teens today, they were very different. The upbringing in the homes. Now, parents, please don't think that it's impossible. It's absolutely possible. Bringing up godly seed, this is what it's about. Your children at age of 12 and 13, are they anywhere close to Daniel? Now, that is the standard of godly seed. Then you begin to think, wow, this is something I have to really think about, right? So children, before you ask, 13, Dad, why can't I be in a relationship now? Think again. How youths were in the past. Biblical knowledge for guidance. Now, parents, the Westminster Shorter Catechism, please understand this clearly. They were written for pre-teens and early teens. Today, we study it as adults in church and say, why WCF or WSC and all that? So complicated. It is not for us. It's for theologians. It's for Bible college students. But they were written at that time because teens, pre-teens needed something like that. Parents, you find that when you do WSC with your children, it's too difficult. That pastor, it's ridiculous to ask me to do Westminster Shorter Catechism with my children. We already have this mentality about them. But this is just not too long back. That is the maturity of children even at that time when the Westminster Shorter Catechism was written. They could understand fully, easily. I thank God that some of our children are like that. Socially, there were no dating. Parents arrange for betrothals leading to marriage. Dad, I want to be in a relationship with that. Okay, Dad will decide and see what you think. That is the situation then, all right? So don't compare it blindly. Ready for responsibilities. Now, boys became adults by about 13 years old, especially for the children of Israel. From a very young age, they were already involved in all sorts of farming responsibilities. If their family is not in farming, then it's some form of trade. That was who they were, right? By the age of 13, they were already managing many things on their own. Children would start training for adulthood with their respective parents, either with the mother or at home, or for girls or boys outside the home. It's a standard thing. It is not that shielded, coddled environment. Well, back then, I think now people will say, wow, this is child labor, right? That is what it is. It's child labor to the people today. But the maturity level of the people back then was very different. It's not child labor, right? Fathers immediately know by around this age, they must already be like adults. So although 13 is when they are starting to be trained, but before that, they were already groomed. Mothers look at their daughters. By the time they are pre-teens, they are already thinking by the time they are teens, what they must be able to already enter into. I'm starting to train. And by then, they're ready for higher training. So it is very different from today. It is not about age. That is my point. That is the whole idea about this presentation. Young people then were ready for relationships and marriage, capable of performing the roles of husband and wife at a very young age. All this preaching of Christ, right? Very often you hear very young people were present. Christ did not say, this is for adults, right? Denying self, taking up the cross, following Christ. This was the life that many of them, the young Jewish children, they were already very much ready for it, to take care of another. Right? These are responsibilities that are needed for being a mature person. Let not every man, look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Now, you say, Pastor, why are you quoting New Testament? I'm quoting you New Testament because you have to ask yourself as a teen. Parents, look at your children. Are they like that? Look not every man onto his own things. Do they have that kind of maturity already to care for others? You want to get married? You don't even show that you care for others. At home, you're fighting with your teen sibling over ridiculous things. Don't talk about in church. Look not every man. Now, I know you get upset at me for saying this all the time, but I still get extremely grieved and disappointed. When visitors come, teens, you just sit and you talk among yourselves. The person can sit right in front of you, or a child that has not been coming for fellowship meetings. and started to come. You can sit behind and just ignore the boy or the girl. And some of you even try to keep yourself together so that they are not part of your group. Now are you showing even the ability to be mature enough to take care of others, to have a care for others? You're very interested to talk to your friend. When your friend is not here and there's a newcomer, you act as if the person is invisible. So why are you thinking about, I'm mature enough? You are not. You are not. You don't show that maturity. Responsibility for the family. But if any man provide not for his own, at 13 years old, they will be ready to provide for their own. If the father dies, they will take over. At 13, you're still hiding in your room playing computer games, right? And you think you're responsible. So do not just think, well, as long as I'm dating for marriage, that's fine. Are you ready for dating? That's the question. Just because you intend to doesn't mean you're ready, right? So don't be foolish to say, but Dad, I want to court the girl, I want to date the girl, you're 15, or the boy, because it's for marriage. It's always famous last words, right? In 3 months, they'll be broken up. Providing for the family. One of the criteria is, are you at the stage where you're ready to provide? You can work. You can't even do housework, right? So that's the reality of the huge difference. Think and respond biblically, right? Many youths today are still carnally minded. I move quickly. So my point is this. You think, as long as for marriage, you think you are mature to enter into dating game, you call it the game. Just ask simple things about your maturity. You know that you are not ready. They were more than ready. Young people then were ready for relationship and marriage. They were capable of performing many of, next one. Are teens as ready as the young people centuries ago? Richard, you're really fast. No. No, right? Okay. Why? Now, okay, right. Not enough now, just teasing you, right? Just teasing you. Now, are teens as ready? Because I know you're sitting there, I am, right? Dad and Mom said, Pastor, you just open a can of worms for me to go back and manage. Don't worry, I'll use very clear data, right? So started research in child development. Now, unbelievers in their survey over the decades have come to very consistent information as they survey the situation of the mentality and the maturity of young people. Now, the development trajectory of adolescents has slowed. Unbelievers see that very clearly in society. With teens growing up more slowly than they used to. They acknowledge that they used to be maturing much faster. Now, in terms of adult activities, 18 years old now look like the 15 years old once did. And this is just the recent decades. An 18-year-old is like a 15-year-old in terms of maturity. The trend cannot be explained by time spent on homework or extracurricular activity. Our studies suggest that teens are taking longer to embrace adult responsibilities. So it is not, they got homework, school homework, and they got school ECA. It is not that. It is more about embracing adult responsibilities. They too had school. They too had ECAs. Just decades back. Don't talk about much before that. But it's about embracing adult responsibilities that they come to this conclusion, this is the problem. Right? They even survey. The age at which people will start to drive themselves, will start to work, has changed drastically. Generation, the iGens, they call it, different from the boomers. I will quote the boomers afterwards, all right? I've defined all this to you guys earlier on, so I won't redefine what they are. Now, poorer emotional health, thanks to news media. Now, this is not about emotional health. Well, I'm talking about maturity, emotional maturity. And the survey is because of media. How they just get sucked in there, mindless, just let media take them wherever, media thinks for them, spend a lot of time on media. Growing up more slowly now, life history theory. How fast teens grow up depends on their perception of their environment. Very key thing. I totally agree. Environment that they're in makes them decide how they want to mature. I'll talk about it more. Slow life strategy. Safe environments allows a greater investment in fewer children, more time for kindergarten, violin lessons. So things have changed. It's not, I remember some of my friends, I say, you have a very big family. In the older days, they say, yeah, because of mortality rate, Parents back then, they have many because they assume some will die. It's that kind of environment. Healthcare was not so good, and so on. Finances. So they have a few, anticipating that not all will survive. But yet they need them to survive, to care for the family. That was the situation. But today it is have less so that we can spend more on luxuries. All right? Music lesson, longer kindergarten and all that. I'm not saying these are sinful, but I'm telling you the environment is different today. And I'm telling parents, if you want to bring up godly seed and you want them to be truly mature, and by the time, if it's God's will for them to get married, they are like Joseph and Mary, many of us are very far from that. So as we say, bring up godly seed, I think we need to have some perspective as parents as well. What you allow, what you plan, what environment you create also affects their choice of maturing. That is my point. How quickly they want to mature. You look at poorer families. I've said this many times. When I employed people, I find that my engineers keep leaving the company. My colleague, his engineers stay and stay and stay. And I ask him, he says, simply, your problem is this. You employ engineers living in expensive districts. It's just true. It was not intentional. You employ people who are rich, they have maids at home. I employ those who live in the heartland, who have grown up the tough way. They appreciate things. They have grown up when they're younger. Not like yours. Boss, how do I go to my customer's place? Take a bus. Bus? They've been ferried all their lives. You see the difference. Parents, you want your children to grow, teach them to endure hardness. Right? I've talked about this at Seniors Fellowship as well, so you know what I mean. Yeah. So now iGens, as a result, think that the system is rigged against them. I'm sure parents can identify with this. The entitlement attitude. Well, parents, teens will say, well, this is teens whacking time, this whole, from Friday. They keep feeling, if this is not given to me, this is not provided for me. See, the whole system at work is rigged against me. I expect all these things to be ready for me. When it's not present, why is it not present? Parents who are older, you understand this. When you were younger, you don't expect anyone to help you. You just know you need to figure it out. But today, if it is not provided on a platter, teens just feel not fair, right? There is a mentality. That's what I'm saying. Why teenagers aren't what they used to be regarding self-supporting work. Back in the 1500s, for example, the Western adolescents would have been workers, recruited into the world of adult work as early as 7 years old. Child labor, right? Well, today it is child labor. I don't disagree with that. But what I'm trying to say, even society understands the maturity was very different back then. Why do I want to say this? It is not about age. Stop thinking about age. Start thinking about ability to hold responsibilities genuinely. Start thinking, parents, about where is my child at today? In rural communities, this may be involved farm work, like the children of Israel, families agriculture. In some of the Australian life, it is still like that. You will see the difference. I met a tradie, right? He came to my house to fix something. He was really good, very mature. He was a late teenager. He's taking courses himself, working very hard. And while all the other tradies were just fooling around, it was quite frustrating for me to watch. Leaving things in a mess and then just leave. This guy stayed back on his own and started to clean up on his own. Making sure that everything was fine, make sure all the patches for the electronic system were done properly, rechecking. Then I spoke with him to understand his background. Grew up in the farm. Never expected things to be on a platter for him from a very young age. Have to be an adult, think like an adult, work like an adult, responsible. It was the environment. And he's studying this, studying that, so that he can be this and that. Right? Already at a young age, very mature. Thinking, planning. The difference. In the 20th century, however, young people were increasingly able to live fully under the wings of their parents or guardians for longer. That is what it is today. Parents are living longer. Right? Pre-war, post-war is different. Today, with better health care, having less children, many parents are living longer and therefore supporting their children financially and emotionally longer. So the expectation is there. To be coddled, to be protected, to be provided for is an expectation. I had lunch with my colleague, ex-colleague who came to Perth last year. Right? His son is studying here, asked me to take care of him. I wouldn't come to church though, I'd be asking him now. Then we were having lunch with the son. The son graduated finally, and the dad said in front of me, and dad and mom said in front of me, "You've graduated already, it's time to go back and start working and start making money. We've been supporting you for so long. You just keep extending this degree, that degree. Dad and mom got to start paying for all this." The boy just looked at him. "Why, Dad?" "No, I'm not going home yet. I want to spend a year off this, a year off that, spend some time doing this, spend some time doing that." Speaking as if it's an expectation. All the friends do that. There's no sense of embarrassment. I said I was quite embarrassed for my ex-colleague. He looked a bit embarrassed himself. What kind of son have I brought up? No shame to say these things. The sense of, yes, I need to start working. I'm already in my late 20s. What am I doing? Still asking for money, still expecting to be supported for me to live the life I want to live for a few more years. So you see the difference. Parents are more well off now, and children will see, well off, what's the problem? Why are you talking about money? You have plenty. The expectation changes. Their response to how quickly they want to mature. Why teenagers aren't what they used to be. Social attitudes. Rights. Right? Rights. Their own wishes and values begin to be listened to more. Isn't it true? Even today, parents, you go out for lunch, go out for dinner. What do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? During our time, you get to eat. That's all you care about. So what do you want to eat? Even when you sit at the table, it's ordered for you. But today is, the environment is, what do you want? What do you want? Right? It's changing to the point where young people begin to feel, now, by the way, these are surveys. Huh? I didn't make up these surveys. These are surveys taken from BBC. Okay? They begin to feel I can be influencers. You know what they are, right? Influencers on the social media. People live longer, healthcare is better, as I've mentioned, fewer children, nurture them more carefully, have more time, more money, more holidays, more luxuries. The environment changes them for maturity at that age. Greater emphasis on safety. I'm not saying you don't care about safety, both physically and emotionally encourages young people and their parents or guardians to keep them insulated. Insulate them as long as possible. For the children of Israel, by the time you're 13, before that, I'm already not insulating you. I'm already teaching you. I'm already telling you. I'm already expecting you by the age of 13. You must be ready to take care of the whole family if I die. You must be ready, if you're a girl, to take care of the whole family if there are no sons. You must be ready to take care of a family if I choose for you to get married at that age. Today is insulate, right? So it's different. My point is that cultural changes. In UK, BBC survey, in UK, it's around 3.5 million single young adults now live with their parents, which is a third more than a decade ago. See the change, just a decade ago. Longer lifespans, stronger financial positions, allows parents to keep supporting their children. Now, is this evil? Is it wicked? I'm just telling you the environment. Can you be different in this environment? You can. It depends on you. I have 2 questions today. Someone asked, "Oh, yeah, it's so expensive now to live, right? Even Perth accommodation prices have caught up with Melbourne and Sydney. In some areas overtaken. So it's difficult. Maybe we shouldn't get married." I'll read the question to you later. Why teenagers aren't used to be of a cultural expectation continuing. With longer life, younger people consider taking a period of 20s and dedicating it to a new stage of life. What I'm saying, exactly what my ex-colleague's son said. I'm in my late 20s. There are many things I've not experienced, have not seen. I want to take a few years off or a year off. I want to go traveling. I want to go see. I must build these experiences. It's an expectation. I want to explore this, explore that, try this, try that, before I enter into the workforce, right? So this is a culture today that BBC has concluded, not BPCWA, right? It's BBC, okay? Now, next one. Why teenagers aren't what they used to be financially. The boomerang, they say now this thing is coming back to hit us. Young adults returning to the nest to live with their parents after higher education. They can't afford their own place. So you say, yeah, they are right. We cannot afford, so we must stay with parents. I'll answer that later. Wealth imbalances and so on, all right? So you know, the boomer stage and them. 7 behaviors that made boomers tougher than adults today. Actually, I just saw this morning. Right? I thought, wow, this is timely. It just popped up as an article. I think Google listens to us, right, all the time. So must be listening to me last night. Suddenly an article turned up like that. Now, post-war upbringing has changed things. Before the war, very different. Boomers, they survived, they went through all this. They come out of the war having nothing. Some of them no education. They have to fight for survival, hand to mouth, every day. As a single, always taking care of many children. After the war, this is how they mature. Living through economic hardship because of all this, it was not an easy time. It's not like you don't wonder about where your next meal is coming from. You even don't wonder do I have money to go to work? If not, parents will help. Society expectations of strength. For the boomers, you're expected to be strong. Suck it up. Deal with it. That is it. They're not going to go home and cry to parents. Parents died in the war. They're on their own, with many siblings, right? Tugging on their skirt, caring, cooking at home, and they're teenagers. They're expected to be strong. Don't give excuses. They won't even think of excuses. They just deal with it. Boomers, personal accountability. Not blame society being rigged against them. Company is not this and that. Parents are not helping me. They just simply know, I have to take care of this myself. How many of us run to our parents, even when we are in our late 20s, late 30s? It was very different for them, making do with less. They don't ask. If I can't rent a place that is so nice, if I can't buy a house in this kind of setting, I do not want exposed bricks, I want the modern ones, rendered, all right? I'm not going to stay in this kind of, you get the idea. Even if I need to rent a dingy little apartment when I get married, that is, they make do with less. That is it. Today, anything less than already having a car, already having, a relatively nice house. Many already say, I won't get married until we have all this, or the man has this, or both of us have this. Then I'll think about marriage. Or for those who are married, until we have some of these things, the semblance of in my mind, what should be, then I'll have children. They just make do with less. Different absolutely different in thinking. I'm not talking about the children of Israel. I'm just talking about post-war. So teens, as you listen to all this, I want you to realize in your heart, you have a very different life from what they used to have. You want to think about marriage. Just because you know how to use the internet, just because you know how to dress, just because you know the modern world, doesn't mean you're ready. Are you ready to be in this kind of situation? Next. Now, how teens are different and the reasons. Poorer emotional maturity today. Why? Media. I mentioned that. I'm just summarizing. Today, media paints a certain picture to you about what life is. Right? So that is your picture. Hardship, what hardship? You start off straight away with a nice life. That is the picture painted to you. And I remember one Christian said this. He stopped his child from watching television. After some time, he realized this is really bad. And I said, why? He said this. The child thinks that life is really like that. You wake up in the morning and then you have nice clothes. You have everything nice and then it's always nice. He said, this is not life. He said, my child have to stop thinking according to what media paints. There are hardships. There is poverty. There is tightening the belt. But the media paints a different picture. Right? That's why the emotional maturity is very different. Greater financial dependence. Continuing to live under parents. So financial independence is often a very big determining factor of how strong a person is. I need to handle this. Parents can't help me anymore. I have to suck it up and figure things out. I don't expect this and that. Weakened sense of duty to others, more self-centered. Why? Sheltered upbringing. What do you want? What do you want? I'll provide for that. I'll buy that for you. I'll give you more. Right? Parents, you must understand what you are doing. We're not talking deprive them of basic necessities. Time off for self-exploration. Why? I can always fall back on parents. Just like my colleague's son. Well, if I can't find a job, you can still support me after that. Because in my mind, the immediate thought was this. After spending a few years, randomly, would his degree be relevant without experience? Right? Well, so what? Take another degree, more relevant, right? Parents will support me. But so there's always this fallback. The boomers, they didn't have any fallback. Unable to make do with less. Lack skills, resourcefulness, desire to be independent. Because of all this, they can't do with less. How am I going to make this kind of money to live in this kind of house? I can't do less than this. To have this kind of car, to have this kind of environment, I can't afford this. Dad, mom, help. Right? I don't want to be independent. I'm not embarrassed. It's not about an age, finally. Christian, I keep reminding, the whole point of this presentation is you need to stop asking what age. People in the Bible were ready for marriage and childbearing from their youth. Don't quote that and say they can. Then parents, now you can quote. Okay, all these things. From now onwards, no pocket money. From now onwards, you find your own place to live and you start working, right, as a youth. You figure out giving tuition and pay for your own tuition at the same time. And when you have trouble, don't come running to daddy and mommy. Okay, if you want that, then yes, I think you're ready. But that is really reality of marriage life. Are you ready? You say you're dating for marriage? Then are you ready for this responsibility? Don't date and say you date for marriage when you're not ready for the responsibilities, all right? You can be 30 and even 40 today, but still dependent on parents. Very common in churches. Immature, unable to bear difficult responsibilities, intemperate. You already are depending on parents at that age, you're still spending money. Like it's your own hard-earned money. You just expect, I want this, I want that. People wear this, people have that kind of handphone. I'm 30 years old, but, well, I'll just ask it from parents. Not sober, not clear-minded. Hence are not ready for a relationship. Even at 30s and 40s, the world acknowledges that today. All right? The cost of living, question number 2. The cost of living, so this is a question submitted for the BGR. The cost of living has been inflating, and presumably that it keeps inflating. Should those struggling financially, okay, so all the English, I'm just verbatim, all right? To disregard the idea of getting into relationship, you get the drift, right? So I'm an adult single or another adult single. They're already struggling financially. And things will keep escalating in cost. Houses, transportation, food, you're experiencing that. Should we then disregard getting into a relationship? Now, this question itself reiterates everything that I've just shown you based on BBC survey, the mentality of young people today. Agree? Back then, if it is God's will for me to get married, they're already mature enough. They just deal with it. This is an idea that I must have. A lot of things that I anticipate and expect at a certain level, then I get married. Now, many of you adults, you have parents or grandparents or of families. I know of many who they rented their entire life. Entire life, rental. I'm talking about Singapore. They work in jobs that the company provides rental. You don't think, wow, rental, then what if I lose my job? They just know, I will take whatever my boss dishes to me. I will just suck it up and take it because my family needs to live in this place. Right? Adults, of your friends or even your own parents, they were like that. The whole life. Never owned a car. When they go out, you see this in churches in Singapore. When they go out, few children, the bus system. Right? Carrying, lugging. But today is, take bus, rental. Maybe I should not think about getting into a relationship. Well, if your mentality is, unless I have all this, then I have a relationship, yes. You're not mature enough to handle a relationship for marriage. I agree with you. But the question is this. Now, if it is God's will for you to be married, do you think this is the right mentality? You know the answer. Right? So young person, I hope you grow out of this thinking. If this is your thinking, you already show that you don't have the maturity to handle the responsibilities of marriage. I say this without reservation. And for those who are married, if you have the mentality, cost of living is growing and it will keep inflating. We are already struggling financially, husband or wife. Well, we should disregard the idea of having children. God says marriage is for, out of the two purposes, one of it is for godly seed. Until we at least live in this kind of environment and possess these things, which you see other church people, they drive this model of car. Until we have those things, right? Not like, this show where this person locked his car with a padlock, not normal lock, not titit from afar, but literally a padlock. Oh, not that kind. Until we have settled all these things. Then we have children or the second child. You are not understanding what Christian marriage is for. You are not. You just want to get married because it's an idea, it's a fantasy, it's a stage of life that everyone has and you want to have it. So you also want what the boomers already had. If you don't, you're not willing to accept that. So this is a very good example of why we are already groomed by our environment to think like that. Now, I'm thankful for many Christians that I know, they are renting. They have children. They are not in permanent jobs. They try for children, one after another. Why? You have to show that you are ready to bear all these things and not expect things to be handed to you. All right? My second last slide, I think. Oh no, a few more. Social attitudes towards rights of children have their own wishes and values to be listened to. That is the mentality today. I've actually said many of this, the insulation from harshness. That is why they ask this. Parents who are older, who have gone through hardship with your parents, you understand what I'm saying? You were never insulated. You have to handle your own education. You have to give tuition to support yourself. You have to do part-time job to support yourself. Today, people come to Australia to do part-time job. When I first came, I was very impressed. Wow, young people coming here to work part-time. It was a holiday thing. Taking time off from life to have holiday in Australia. They work on farms. I thought, wow, bearing hardship. No, it's the only way for them to come in to have a holiday. Parents who have gone through harshness. Well, you became what you were because of what you were forced into by the environment. You need to think about your children. Coddling them is not exactly going to help them to grow. BBC says so. Parents' expectations today: house, food, car, clothing, holidays, schools, ECAs, updated technology and appliances, no hard work. Even parents think like that for their children. You know, I can't remember one session when I showed you multi-billionaires in the world. They leave nothing to their children. They expect their children to work and hack it out like they did. They understood. They understood the dangers of having it all given to them on a silver platter, but they understood. They understood the value of forcing them into independence, fighting for their own survival. But today parents, is that your thinking? And did my child have all this? They don't have enough, I'll help. Do you think you're really helping? The Lord says, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Do you have that maturity like Mary? What God says, that's it. I don't know what's going to happen next, like was for Joseph. Just simply obey what they receive from the Holy Ghost. Do you believe that when you seek the kingdom of God first and His righteousness, God will provide? No. Houses are expensive, cars are expensive, food is expensive. I have an idea of where I eat, where I must go to for holidays. Well, all these things are things that I expect that I have. So a lot of people enter into dating without thinking about all this, but expecting all this somehow to be available or get it from parents. Do you have faith? God's will for you to get married? Don't say, everything is expensive. Godliness with contentment is great gain. The discontentment of this generation, BBC rightly assesses. If I don't have this, society is rigged against me. They're not content with what they have. They expect things. Therefore, endure hardness as a good soldier of Christ. You want to be ready for dating? Grow up now. Grow up now. And have a mentality that I am not going to expect things from daddy and mommy. I will endure. I will take care of things. I must grow. Right? But you are entangled with the affairs of this life. Entangled with the affairs of this life. What preoccupies you? Gaming, ECAs, holidays, eating, right? Hanging out with friends, social media. Entangled in the affairs of this life. Those people back then, even post-war, don't talk about Israel, even post-war, they had no time for this. This is how you grow. Parents, this is how you help your children grow. buying them the best of everything, unless it is to serve the purpose of spiritual growth, doesn't necessarily mean you're preparing them well for the battles of life, for marriage. Let us turn to God in prayer.